Hi, Andrew Wade here with Case Specific Nutrition and another registered dietitian rant. Today I'm going to do things a little bit differently. This rant isn't focused really on a specific question, but more a specific diet I've been getting a lot of questions about. This diet is called the Ketogenic Diet, and there's a lot trending about it on the internet now. I wrote an article for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette on their Community Voices blog about, 5 weeks ago now in the month of March, outlining some of the potential benefits, the potential cons of it, as well as some of my concerns as a dietitian. And I wanted to take a little bit of time on video just to talk through some of those concerns and then also give you some resources so that you can kind of search and figure out the education on your own time as well. So again, the ketogenic diet, simply stated, is our body being trained to fuel on fat. So most of the time, as outlined in some of my previous videos and articles, our body prefers carbohydrate. It is the fuel source our brain goes to and our muscles go to first when we need more energy. That said, fat is constantly available in our body and can be used for all body parts, including our brain, when in need. The issue, again, is that our body will not do that unless we are in what you would consider a starvation mode, is what it used to be called. But the idea of we have absence of carbohydrates. Our body will then turn fat into ketones, which are an energy source our body can use. I'm not going to get into the science today just for the length of time that we're trying to keep this video, but I did want to state that it's the idea of fueling your body on fat. This has great application in two specific populations, in my opinion. The first is your endurance athletes, hence the surrounding, the cyclists, the marathon runners, the triathletes. One of the biggest reasons for this is because carbohydrates, while a primary fuel source and a very efficient fuel source in terms of willingness to be used by our body, is not very available. Our body can only store enough carbohydrate for 90 to 120 minutes of moderate intensity activity, which is why you see the endurance athletes starting to fuel carbohydrates about 2 hours in to prevent running out of that store. Fat, on the other hand, is readily available to the point where most people could go 500 to 700 miles running on their fat stores. So again, pretty available, especially compared to carbohydrate. One of the biggest advantages that the running crowd especially is getting into is now all of a sudden, if you fuel on fat, you don't need to take in carbohydrates during your workout. That's a pretty exciting thing. Some find the act of carbo loading, fueling on sugars, goos, and gels, and gummy bears, and dried apricots, and all sorts of things during, and then carbo loading after for recovery, to be overwhelming and not appetizing. For those people, shifting to a ketogenic diet could have potential application. One of the immediate concerns is if, as an athlete, you are focused on trying to maximize your performance and you need to access those sprint capabilities, those anaerobic systems, those anaerobic pathways, you will not have access to those. Our body does not run on fat in the anaerobic state, so you have to stay anaerobic. So there is no true peak performance with ketogenic diet. Now that said, most triathletes, most endurance athletes aren't going to be getting to 100% carbohydrate need anyway. They're going to be able to get a nice push to the finish without the carbohydrates. So that's where there is potential for debate about what is best for you. The second population that I'm most excited about is the pre-diabetics and the insulin-resistant populations. Again, these are the populations that are starting to inefficiently use carbohydrates. So the insulin isn't there to shuttle it to the muscle, or it's not cooperating and communicating with the cells very well, and so the sugar's not getting to the cells. In the ketogenic diet, you don't use insulin because you don't have carbohydrates in your system. Your body runs on fat effectively. And so it's sort of like the idea of why use a system that's broken? Use a different system. I'm really excited to see what kind of research comes out with this. The problem with both of these populations is this research is fairly preliminary, and with that, most of the research is short-term, no more than 5 years. We have a couple case studies of individuals reporting ketogenic diets for up to 10 years, but again, we don't have any long-term trials, and that is the biggest concern. Most people that become diabetic are usually older than 60. Well, I want to see a ketogenic diet for 60 years before we can compare the two together. But for now, there is potential application in the two. Some of the biggest concerns, I will say, and report immediately just off the top of my head, would be the impact that a high-fat diet has on the digestive system and the impact high-fat has on the pancreas. So just like carbohydrates, insulin comes from the pancreas, pancreatic lipase also comes from the pancreas. And so just like insulin can burn out, so can lipase. And so I'm concerned that a high-fat diet, so the higher extreme version of a high-carb diet, is still going to have some damaging effects on our fatty organ system. So again, our lymphatic system, our pancreas, our gallbladder, even our GI tract. And these are all things that warrant longer-term trials before we start giving this out and recommending this to everybody. That's just a short, brief overview of the diet. Again, I did write about it in greater depth on my blog, pittsburghdietitian.com, as well as on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Community Voices page in March. And I will have more content coming soon related to endurance training, as well as content about this diet. So please stay tuned. Thank you.